We start off this chapter with Dollor's looking all shocked and stunned by what just happened. A brief recap: even after piercing his head with Beelzebub, Dantalion was still able to talk. While Vikir was lifting him by the head, Dollor's collapsed onto the ground, stunned at the fact that Dantalion was still capable of talking with a sword through its skull. Seeing how the demon was still alive, even Vikir was taken back by a bit, recognizing that the title Elite Corpse isn't just a title. Looking closer at our boy, Dantalion figured out that he was the one that killed Andromalius, the elite corpse that had infiltrated the Baskerville family. Seeing that the face of Quilty has been damaged, Dantalion reveals another face he was hiding in the back of the face he is wearing. He smiles even though he had lost the face of a clergyman. As he rips away from Quilty's body in a new female body, Dantalion reveals that he collects people's faces and in doing so, is able to absorb their memories and their life, allowing him to act all innocent. He continues to laugh at Vikir, telling him that the one he killed was none other than Quilty Loon Indulgentia. And it was just one of the many faces that he owns. Unless Vikir can kill all of the faces he has in his arsenal, then he will never be able to kill the elite corpse, Dantalion. Hearing that, Vikir immediately leaps towards the demon, telling him that he was going to do as he says. Vikir was going to kill every single one of the faces he has. And so, Vikir manages to stab the demon straight through the stomach this time. The moment his blade pierced the body, something weird was going on as Dollor watched the scene unfold before her eyes. The body that Dantalion had stolen, its owner had come back. With tears in her eyes, she begs Vikir to save her as she didn't want to die. Even as blood filled her eyes and dripped from her mouth, the young lady continued to beg Vikir to spare her from this pain. Before long, the possessed body collapsed onto the ground in front of them. As the dead body laid there, a sound of something ripping and morphing could be heard from its corpse. Not long after, another body appears, ripping itself free from the young lady. This time, the man looks around, all confused and wondering where he was. He started to recall the fact that the last thing he remembered was buying meat pies that his daughter likes on his way home. But before he could finish his sentence, Vikir, without an ounce of mercy, simply slices his head off from his body, telling Dantalion that he was being too arrogant. The next body that appeared started to cry as a reflection of a young boy could be seen in the lens of Vikir's pandemic mask. Dantalion had chosen a child this time, crying towards Vikir and telling him that he was being too mean. Rubbing his eyes as he walks closer to Vikir, the young boy complains to Vikir, telling him that he didn't do anything wrong and questions him on why he was bullying him. Even with all the crying, complaining and childish voices, Vikir wasn't bothered by it at all and told Dantalion to stop his act. Remembering the memory with Andromalius, who could also change his face and voice to the people he killed, Vikir had already gotten immune to such acts by the demons, and was no longer affected by them. After revealing that fact, Dantalion finally shows his true demonic side once again, smiling after knowing that Vikir was a stone-cold killer and that his changing of faces didn't affect him at all. But the demon has a hidden card up its sleeve, telling Vikir to check something out as his finger starts to morph into something sharp. Something shoots out of it, hitting Vikir's wrist even before he could react to it. By the time he looked at what it was, a piece of Dantalion had attached itself to our boy. Right before having his head sliced off, the young boy smiles, telling Vikir that what he had gotten was a present from the elite corpse. As soon as the body was pushed backwards by the blow from Vikir, Dantalion started to morph and change in the middle of the air, twisting and turning his current body before landing in a new one. As he looked over to Vikir, he couldn't help but laugh. It turns out that something was happening to him, everything around him started to blur, and the feeling of pain and nausea was taking over him. After just a few seconds, Vikir kneels onto the ground, in pain as Dollor watches over him with concern. Dantalion, with even more eyes and mouths on his face and hands, laughs at Vikir's current situation, revealing that he had planted a face onto Vikir's wrist just moments ago, and that right now, he was going to show him the face's memories and emotions. Dantalion continues to reveal to Dollor and Vikir that the face he had planted into him was someone who suffered from paranoia and schizophrenia, resulting in him killing his precious family. Which made him wonder what Vikir was feeling. After all, he was going to have the memories of two people clashing in one body. Dantalion was hoping that Vikir's memories and the face's trauma would mix, and that his consciousness would begin to perish as a result. But something unexpected catches the demon's attention as he stares in wonder. Dollor, covering her mouth in shock over what the bloodhound did. Vikir had actually sliced his own arm off before the face's trauma could mix into his mind. Dollor was concerned over his missing arm, but Vikir assured her that everything was fine as he started to recover. He shows off his freshly healed arm, telling Dantalion that even though he was hunting a demon, he was not your average human. Looking at what Vikir did, the demon started to understand why Andromalius had actually been defeated. Looking closely at the sword that Vikir was wielding against him, he could see that it was emitting demonic energy, which meant that it was Beelzebub. Adding on that Vikir had the aura of a graduator of the highest grade, Dantalion realizes that he was not going to be an easy opponent to fight head-on. So he smiles after thinking of another way to deal with Vikir and starts to morph his hand into something else once again. With his creepy hand, Dantalion starts to point it at the duo, but this time, instead of attacking Vikir like before, he aims his creepy finger at Dollor's, shooting it at her at lightning speed. But something else was faster, our boy. He steps in and manages to defend Dollor's from the demon's surprised attack. But all of this was planned by him. He smiles, knowing that Night Hound would protect the Saintess, and realizes that he was fighting with a weakness right beside him. As Vikir continues to defend and block the incoming attacks all aimed at Dollor's, she tells him to not worry about her and continue his fight against the demon, but our boy couldn't do that. As he didn't want to lose the hero's pillar. After all, Dollor's played an important part in the fight against the demons in his previous and future life. She couldn't fight back against Vikir's words, and continued to watch a fight that was so cruel and scary to her. She could see that the Night Bloodhound was fighting alone right now, and wonders if he was going to continue to fight alone in the future as well. Gripping her hands tightly together, Dollor's knew that she needed to solidify her resolve, but she was so scared right now to the point that she couldn't stop shaking. But even with all those negative emotions, the girl was ready to jump in the fight and help the Night Bloodhound. Finally, holy light started to be casted once more, but before she could continue, a piece of Dantalion was tossed right in front of her, breaking her concentration as she looked at it. The pile of meat, containing pieces of eyes and mouth, started to speak to her, calling Dollor's sister. The image of Quilty's face started to appear in her head once again as fear and horror overtook the Saintess, breaking her courage that she took so long to gather before. Panic and fear was all she had right now, as she couldn't do anything anymore. Dantalion, on the other hand, was smiling in his fight against Vikir, calling it too easy as his arms changed into tentacles covered with ghostly faces. The demon knew that having one person transplanted into another body was already painful enough, but he couldn't help but wonder what would happen to a human when hundreds of humans are transplanted into one body. The tentacles filled with the souls and memories of the victims the demon had killed started to make their way towards Vikir, who braces himself for the upcoming carnage. Even in the face of millions of enemies, Vikir simply tells Dantalion that he was going to cut them all down. Just like he said, Vikir started to slice and dice the tentacles that were near him, cutting them down endlessly without even stopping to catch his breath. The demon was impressed by the feat that he was accomplishing, but mocks the Night Hound, wondering if he was going to cut thousands of faces up. Ignoring the demon's taunts, Vikir continued to do what he does best. Slicing and dicing the endless waves of faces that were coming to kill him. But as he cuts through the attacks, something catches his eyes in the midst of the battle. Amongst the faces that he had cut, one of them looked familiar to our boy. A face that we had recently been introduced to. Memories started to flash in Vikir's mind, recalling the time that he had spent with a precious young orphan during his volunteer days. Thinking of that face in his memories, it matches the face he had just slain. This was one of the rare moments where Vikir was fearful of something, as he slowly realizes that the face belonged to Perry. Because of that single moment of lapsed judgment, Vikir stopped attacking and was slowly consumed by the endless horde of faces. The light of the Night Bloodhound was soon covered by the deadly faces of Dantalion.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.